Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Dal West Watson, Mike, Henrik86, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, TheFlatEarthChannel.com, Chris Hillman, NA Literalist, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Burn Fat Till My Stomach is as flat as the earth, Nathan Thompson, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Missouri Bear, Liam Nedrick, Dank, Erwin Jennisons, Abraham Mohammed, Dave Rakia Gafford, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Fireball X, Felix Hung, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, Kirsten Smith, Alexander Main, and David Wayne Foster. So a massive shout out to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. I'll raise the mic on whoever is in Discord, and you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
Think about it. Walking into this world for the first time.
Yeah.
Hey, 10th man.
Good morning, all.
Morning. How are you?
Hey, Nick.
Morning.
Good morning to you.
Morning.
Doing well. Looking at a beautiful moon right now.
Nice.
Full moon at that.
What did you say? You're looking at a full moon?
Whip out
Yeah.
that laser thermometer.
So that means because what's the shape of that moon? Do you know? Just from looking at it?
It's just light in the sky to me. I can't tell if it's got anything other than a circle.
That means we must be living on the same thing.
Well, how about when it goes through its phase changes? You know, when it's a half moon, quarter moon. What happens then, Neil?
Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought about it that way. That's true. Did they ever think about that? Well, they were speaking mostly about the planets, right? When they came up with that assumption that everything in the solar system is spherical, so we must be spherical.
Gee, everything on the human body looks like a thumb because I have a thumb.
I've heard that one.
Or an ear.
Think about how they
or
came
a
up with that
nose.
whole heliocentric. It's funny. It's really funny.
In the word, helio.
Centered around Helios.
Yes.
The
The
sun
sun
god.
god.
S-U-N, not S-O-N.
That's right.
Like the prince of the world is the devil, as the Bible says, and he's going to deceive, and this is one of his great deceptions.
I believe so. I believe so because in Isaiah, right, that he says that he will exalt himself above the
Isaiah,
heavens.
where he says,
He will
I
be
will
like
be
the
like
Most
the Most
High.
High.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm right with you, man. I seriously think there's some gnarly things going on, spiritual things going on, because people just aren't the same people they used to be.
Very
Well, I would
quiet,
like-
Ryan, by the way. I've turned you up as much as I can.
Yeah, Ryan's a quiet talker. Come on, Ryan, let's get some bass in that voice.
A soft talker?
Is he a horse whisperer?
Horse whisperer.
Getting,
Yeah, the
he's
person who talks to horses.
getting interrupted.
Must be talking about me.
Okay then.
Was that me interrupting him?
I didn't hear a word you said, Ryan. I'm really sorry. It's just not loud enough for me to pick out what you're saying.
Clarifies
For
it.
me?
Say again, Ryan?
I wasn't sure if you said Brian or Ryan.
Ryan? Ryan's not here yet.
How is things going in Oklahoma, Ryan?
They're coming, man. Just doing a lot of looking around, taking care of tying up some loose ends, just stocking up on food like as much as we can.
I noticed the shelves are kind of empty yesterday.
Yeah, they'll just
What-
keep
what
getting
main
that way even
supermarket?
more and more.
What's that? Yeah, I went into one of the main supermarkets yesterday, and thinking if 10 people told me to put my mask up, I swear to God, if the 11th one would have, I would have attacked. But I noticed a lot of empty shelves.
Yeah, it's of my opinion that it's just gonna keep getting more and more empty. So one day it's just gonna be gone.
Did you see that video of the Australian lady who got arrested because she posted on social media a rally for freedom, and they came to her house. I guess she's several weeks pregnant, and it just got released yesterday. At least that's when I saw it.
Yeah, I saw it.
And she's all shocked, like, "What's this all about?" And the husband's got the baby, their other baby in his hand, and it's being filmed, and it's like 3 cops there. And well, you posted something on social media about a rally or something like that, and it's like that's a crime. I mean, my goodness, they arrested her and
Where?
took her.
Where?
Hello. Yeah, then in
Australia.
Australia, arrested her for
Oh, Australia.
enticement.
Yeah,
Think.
enticement. That was it. Enticement for a peaceful rally. Unlike the peaceful rallies we have in the United States, where they burn down buildings.
Oh, those are allowed.
Yeah, I know.
Arson is
Amazing.
legal now. Destruction of business is legal now.
Get to the
And
5G.
Neil,
the
you don't have
5G
to wear a
chip.
mask if you go out in the peaceful protests and burn down buildings. You know that?
I know they want me to wear a mask, but if I start looting and burning shit down, I'm legit.
That's not the
That's
case.
it.
Come on, you're being absurd.
No, seriously. We're being very serious, Nathan. The Democrat cities that are run do not enforce mask wearing on the protesters that are burning down.
Oh my God, this lady's crazy. Nancy Pelosi says maskless salon visit was a setup. Yeah, okay. She's a freaking demon, this lady. Who put her in freaking power?
Money,
devil.
money, money. They've been stealing
my
the vote in
voice.
California for years.
Did any of you subscribe to Thrice 8 Hermes?
I have.
You watch much of his stuff?
I haven't lately. I put the notification, but I just watch when notifications come, but I haven't got one.
I'm not that type of viewer. I tend to indulge in stuff and exhaust it and then maybe come back to it a few months later, as opposed to wait for the next upload. So I just watched the majority of his stuff and then moved on. But he's describing being an onlooker to the nonsense. Like a
Right.
depressed jester, right?
Right.
And when I hear you guys talk about the mainstream media, news, whatever's going on, it doesn't matter which side I hear the argument from, or if it's Black Lives Matter or Corona or whatever. I just feel like him. I just feel like this is nonsense. It's laughable. But there we go. I don't know. I don't participate in that nonsense, so I'm merely an onlooker. So I've got no opinion in any of this stuff. Feel free to discuss it as much as you like. I don't care.
Well, the point you're making is just one facet of it. Now, if you were the person being arrested, you wouldn't be laughing, especially if you were pregnant. And if your property got burned down, you wouldn't be looking. Now, everyone has a different way they look at it until it actually hits them or happens to them. Like if I'm driving down to the city, which takes about 25, 30 minutes for me, and if I see a crowd of people blocking my road and they got skateboards and other kinds of stuff to do harm to my car, possibly me, I might think different if I'm stuck and I can't put it in reverse and get out of their way. And all of a sudden you see what's happening to people in the YouTube clips.
Yeah, it's turned into anarchy. It is anarchy.
It's
They've
they're
demonized
trying to overthrow
the
the current condition of the United States. It's pretty obvious.
Hold on. I've seen this video too. This video of the Australian pregnant woman getting arrested. How much actual research have you done into what she was arrested for? What evidence they have against her? Has anybody done any research into that whatsoever?
I haven't even seen
My wife said that she was. There's another instance with this lady, not just this one, that my wife told me she saw on YouTube. I can't place it right now, but that's where I got it from. So,
it's definitely
okay. Let's try a different question. Who's verified that she's pregnant? Who's double checked that?
well, there's no way I could do it from here because I can't control the independent variable. So,
okay. What's her surname?
can't.
What's her surname?
So we can do this with just about everything. Then
I know. I'm very skeptical of this stuff that I get exposed to. I tend to ask myself, not why is this happening? Isn't it awful? Why have I been exposed to this? Is the question I ask myself first, and then I might consider researching the thing a bit more extensively.
Okay, let me talk about what I know for sure. When there's riots going on in Brooklyn and New York, I'd contact family and friends to verify that what I'm looking at on YouTube and the news is correct. And it is correct. So I can verify those things.
What things? You haven't been specific in the slightest. Be specific. What are you verifying?
The riot, the burning of stores, the riots. Like I see them on the TV and I see them on YouTube.
Okay.
So I call family members that live in the area or friends, and they're like, yes, this is going on right now.
Okay.
I can verify those things.
Okay.
Now, as far as a pregnant woman, I don't know.
Okay. Riots, you can confirm they're actually happening. Okay. Do you know the motivation of the rioters? Do you know their cause? Do you know any of the rioters?
Do I know any of the rioters?
I mean, do you know?
What
I'm asking
is... No,
is...
he wouldn't know.
What? Okay, in that case, what's the claim of the outlet that's showing it you? Even if it's a YouTuber, what's their claim in terms of the motivation of the riots?
All right, I'll jump in on this one. You go on, whoever.
I'm just saying it's obvious that there's a coup going on. They want to overthrow the government.
Hold on, where have you got that? See, this is the problem. I'm taking little baby steps about establishing the motivation, and you're immediately into government coup. What the hell?
Well, they're saying it, Nathan.
Who's saying? There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. Who's saying it?
I love this.
Go, 10th man. Go. Tell me who's saying it.
Okay, these organizations have it on their signs as individual people with their phone cameras, not the mainstream media, are taking videos and posting it up they are being interviewed, and these are the people who are causing the damage, and they have a statement, almost like a what's the word? When you put out a statement about your intent.
Press release.
What's that?
A press release.
Yeah, but that's not the word. Now. Like a manifesto. Like
a manifesto.
They have
okay.
Yeah. So they have a manifesto to defund the police, this and that, and it's in writing. Then when they get interviewed by various YouTube, people who post their own videos, I don't even watch mainstream media. I just get all this stuff from these little clippets from a lot of different individuals, and not only in the United States, but from other parts that are covering the same story. So,
what are they saying?
They're saying pretty much what Neil is saying.
That they want a coup.
Yeah, they want to overthrow the white privilege that America has enjoyed all these years, and they want reparations, and they want socialism, and they want the government to pay them. I mean, it goes on and on and on, depending how far you're going to go down the rabbit hole. But within the groups that are doing all this stuff, they have various demands as well. So then when you see the Democratic Party, which is an evil party here, so they're really socialists anyway, but cater to them. And the mayors, now the rest, I mean, look, you got laws on the books. They're not being enforced in these cities by the Democrats who are in charge, like the mayors and the governors. Now, if you're standing in the freeway, 150 people, let's say, and cars are supposed to have that freeway, get it? You need to come and arrest those 150 people. They shouldn't be on the freeway because there's signs saying you can't be on the freeway, but no one does that. Same thing with city blocks, same thing with breaking into all these stores, robbing them, burning everything down. No one's being arrested, and when they do, they get let go within hours by the same Democratic city mayors and governors.
The people are being arrested.
Yeah, but they're getting let out
go.
immediately. Nothing's holding, nothing's sticking because they're getting bailed out.
Bailed? Well, that's different.
They're releasing prisoners from
bail.
jail because
that's bail. Hold on, I'm getting conflicting stories. I don't know why I care about any of this nonsense, to be perfectly honest. I'm already really bored. I've got to be honest. And I know you're saying shops are getting burnt down and individuals should be prosecuted, right? That's the extent I've got so far, and I agree with that, right? But then we've got this.
Right.
We've got these two extremes: coup, manifesto. Give me more information on how that has been disseminated. Go on. Sorry, who was that?
That's how a coup starts.
What, publicly?
And believe me,
telling YouTube.
It's getting. Well, look. There's got to be some order. It can't be chaos.
Well, that's also how fear of a coup starts, though, isn't it?
No, but they're actually saying
nobody's answering.
And they're being recorded saying it.
Maybe why is it?
They're saying we want to overthrow the United States.
I heard the assertion. I've heard it.
Okay, so
been completely ignored. I just said that's also how fear of a coup starts, isn't it?
Yes.
All right.
Right, but no one's arguing that.
Those two things are very different, aren't they?
Well, one follows the other, right?
Cities. So.
Keep reasserting the facts. I've heard them.
Right, but one follows the other, Nathan. I mean, obviously,
your assumption. Check it out. I love these conclusory statements that you tell me. One must follow the other.
I know. Hold on.
I know.
I think I know what's going on. If you give me a minute.
Okay.
Can I get a minute?
Go ahead.
The English are trying to take over again.
Let's spare me the farcical asides, right? You've given me very limited information, and you've given me almost no information in terms of the source and the qualities of these sources. You just said they've come from YouTube and they're trustworthy because they're from YouTube, and that's about all I've heard so far. Got to be honest. Weak.
No, it's more than that.
English,
obviously,
over again. That's what it is.
It's a lot more than that, Nathan. It isn't just a bunch of a few people.
At the end of the day, you can't have order without chaos.
Right. We're in a world that's dominated by the Hegelian dialectic. And what do you know? We've got blacks being set against whites, and fear amongst the general populace of a coup. Well, that's quite useful. Useful for those in power. Useful for me to ignore. Now, it's difficult to ignore when someone's like, well, business is getting smashed up. Yeah, and people should be arrested. I'm not going to disagree with that. Am I going to extrapolate it out into what's being fed to you by the media? Not necessarily, is my answer to that. I'd need to do a little bit more investigation before I drew those conclusions, even though that's what's being told to you.
No, let me comment on that. No one's afraid of a coup. They are saying they want to do one, and what they're saying is being reported. It's what's being reported directly is the damage that they're doing, and the chanting and what they're saying, down with the USA. And then when they get interviewed, they say they want to overthrow the USA.
Yeah,
it's just
so
them
I get
wishing to do it.
I get it. So what I hear is stuff getting damaged, nothing being done about it, and potential government overthrow. Oh, that all sounds bad. If I was a General Joe, I'd be terrified.
No, but we're not. That's the point. I'm trying to say to you
And
that
they
it's
are
only being done.
It's getting contrasting information again, 10th man. Do you want to repeat that?
Finish.
Do you want to repeat that as none of us are normies on this panel, 10th? Go ahead. Repeat that, please, if you wouldn't mind, Neil.
Most of the normies are frightened.
Terrified.
Agreed.
Yeah, there we go.
I didn't hear what he said.
Said most of the normies are terrified. That's my point. Now, you're not terrified. I'm not terrified. Neil's a little bit scared, but that's okay. He's...
Hey, I'm not scared.
Don't poke the bear. Poke the bear. From upper New York State. He's
okay,
fine.
Neil. We're here for you.
I have young children.
No,
That's
it's
the only thing.
the connection I'm
Did I
making.
get-
The connection I'm making is the same. They're trying to terrify people, but what's happening is they're isolated to certain cities and certain places, which are all Democrat, by the way, and the news is coming out on them. So most people, and I would say most, I can't put a percentage on it, but are not terrified. Not even close yet.
Conflicting stories.
No, it's not conflicting.
Well,
in the hotbed where it's happening, where businesses are being lost and people can't come out because there's a mob outside, those people are terrified. But then there are many reasons for that.
What businesses
but the people
were?
who don't
What were
live
the businesses? What shops got looted?
There, oh my gosh, it's the whole. If you just look at the videos, just
Tell
about
me.
every shop down the street.
Yeah, and were they
I could
privately
give
owned
you one.
businesses? Were they
I was
retail
thinking-
outlets? What were they? Were they private businesses?
Yeah, there was one
Yeah.
that yesterday I heard was over 109 years old and got totally burned down. It was a private business.
Yeah, but private, or I'm talking. Was it mom and pop store or 105
Yeah,
years making
yes,
these?
yes.
Is it?
Yes,
Nathan, let me give you one that I just heard.
Okay.
There's a black lady. She just happened to be a black lady. She had a hair salon. Destroyed in Minneapolis. Over 1,500 businesses destroyed. Mom and pops as well as chains. Now they hit her with a $200,000 bill because they had to tear down the building because it wasn't safe and put up a fence, and they stuck her with the bill.
Okay. What's the black woman relevance? Why are you telling me that she's black specifically?
He wasn't. He was saying she just happens to be black.
Yeah. Well, why
She
is that
happened to be
relevant?
African-American. The guy next door to her was a white business owner. The whole block was wiped out. But they're sticking them with the bill. If the building is unsafe after the fires and they have to tear it down
I
for
got all
the
that.
safety of the people.
I got all that. Why did you
The
specifically reference her?
the
Hold on, Ted.
significance of the black woman. would
Yeah,
be
what's the
that if it's-
significance? There must be
Yeah,
one.
if it's Black Lives Matter who did it, then why are they doing it to one of their own? That's the significance.
It's Black Lives Matter who did it, you say?
No, I didn't say that. I don't know who did
Gaslight,
it.
man.
Well,
No, I
probably.
said.
Hold on, Neil.
I said.
Go on, 10th.
Okay.
The lady was
I
black,
said-
that's all I'm saying.
Can you calm down? I'm trying to get the details. I'm finding out who these... I didn't even know who this was until 30 seconds ago. Now you're rumpusing the crap out of him. So this is, according to you, 10th, Black Lives Matter, right?
I said I've seen where Black Lives Matters has looted as well as torn down or burned down black-owned businesses, and the black-owned business people are mad as you know what about
Yeah, but
it.
that's
Yes,
not what I'm
I've seen
asking.
those
Is
on
this
YouTube.
instance that or not?
Oh, I don't know the one Neil's talking about.
Well, that's where it started in Minneapolis.
Well, I don't think you guys should come to South Africa.
I'm not getting any straight answers out of you guys. Why am I getting... And I'm serious. Why am I not getting any straight answers? This is very convoluted and weaselly. So what do you mean that's where it all started? That's not a straight answer.
That's where the riot started. After that guy, George Floyd, supposedly got killed. Who knows if that even really happened? I don't know.
That's not what
But it's where it all started.
You're answering a
So
different
you
question
happen
now.
to be
Now you're
on
answering a
the
different
news
question.
today.
I'm getting tired of this, to be honest.
Yeah, let's
To be
change
honest.
the subject.
Well, you guys wanted to get into this. I've joined in with my skeptical usual.
Oh, that's okay. You can be skeptical, but I think we've run the course, haven't we?
I got virtually
no
nothing
matter what
from
kind
that. I know virtually nothing from that. I've got to be honest. Just, there we
Hold on,
go.
I got
Right, but
something for you.
no matter what we say, you can be skeptical, and unless it's our camera and we were there, we can't go any further than that.
No, you can't, even with your camera and you being there, divine the
Sure I can.
motivation, divine the inspiration
Sure
of the
I
person
can.
who's doing it, their superiors, if there are any. None of that stuff can be established just because you're there
Sure,
with a
sure I
camera.
can. No, I disagree, Nathan, because if I'm there and I talk to them and they tell me what their motivation is, then I could report on their motivation.
Oh, right, because people are all totally honest when you just ask them.
Well, let me ask you this. We got crates of bricks being delivered the night before riot. Who paid
Says
for that,
who?
and why are they in
Yeah, I
why
saw
are they
this.
in the-
Yeah, it says who.
Hang on.
Who says?
Yeah,
I saw this
on
nonsense
TV.
too. Who says this? Who
Yeah,
claims
yeah.
this? Who's shown
Yeah,
you this?
Yeah, lots of people.
It was on TV.
Okay, let me say something. Those bricks, anytime there's construction going on in the city, it's not abnormal to see cinder blocks, bricks, and building material on the side of a street.
Yeah, but it's being reported with a malicious undertone, Neil.
Correct, Neil. But here's the problem: there was no building in those places taking effect. They were
Says
just
who?
there was nothing.
Oh my God!
There's no
I can't believe
permit.
this.
Is that a
There was
fact?
no permit.
Hold on. Let's see you back that claim, 10th.
Yes, the interviews of the people who were there.
Oh my God! Based on hearsay, there was no building work
Well, you're
going on.
asking me, like I said, the only way you're going to accept it, because you're doing the 1984 move on us, is the skeptical on everything is there just for us to be sold that if you're in this group, and then sold this if you're in that group. So
10th,
unless I'm
he's
there,
not 10th. He's not doing the 1984 thing. He's doing the auto hoax thing.
I'm not doing anything. I'm just asking questions.
What's the auto-
Is this
what's the auto hoax
1984
thing?
move a dance move?
By asking
yeah,
questions that are specific, suddenly I'm auto-hoaxing this, am I, Anthony?
Yes,
What is-
auto
No,
hoaxing.
I'm
He
not.
doesn't let anything off topic. He just dismisses everything off topic. That's what it is.
Oh,
That's
is
just
that what
totally.
auto-hoaxing is?
Oh, no. How can I spend 15 solid minutes talking about something, trying to ascertain specific details by asking poignant questions that are direct, and then holding people to task when they don't answer them with direct answers? Suddenly that makes me an auto-hoaxer not interested. Oh, my God.
I want to hear more about auto hoaxing.
I'm with 10th. I believe anything.
You're just
Hey,
poking
listen,
me.
what-
I know you are. I've just figured out what's going on.
Anthony, can you give us another example of auto hoaxing, please?
9/11. Just no. That's. I don't accept that. The three buildings can fall with two planes. That's a complete conspiracy. Anyone that suggests that you need three planes, you just auto hoax it because no. You don't need three planes. You just need two. Just
Okay.
flippantly dismiss the argument straight away without
I'll
consideration.
give a bit of a better explanation. So, in many respects, Anthony's right. That's why he's poking me. Now, why don't I have a TV? Because I think it's all nonsense. That's my automatic assumption by almost anything that's presented to me by means that I don't have control over. I haven't made a specific search. It just happens to be presented to me for whatever reason, right? Yeah, in that respect, my general standpoint is this is probably nonsense or has a certain spin that I'm unaware of. Therefore, I might as well just disregard it out of hand. Right? Now, there are certain things that happen in the media that you can take that stance with, and many people also take that stance, which is to say, it's probably going to be bollocks. At some level, this is probably bollocks. That's basically an auto-hoaxer.
Got it. Yeah, I agree with that.
I want to know what this 1984 move was. Is it? A
Yeah, what
dance
was that?
move?
I didn't get that reference either. Anthony did.
Changing the news to suit the narrative.
Yeah.
Is it like the electric
So-
slide?
It's,
If I didn't do
to
that-
control people.
Hold on,
It's
I
to
didn't do
control-
that. I didn't insert some character narrative about the people being government-controlled shills.
No,
I didn't do
we're
any
not
of that.
saying you did it. We're not saying you did it. I'm not saying you did it, but you've said on past shows.
My God! I'm not saying you did it, but let's now talk about a specific example
Well,
you've
I
used.
I gotta finish.
You said it in the past, Nathan.
I'm not
being
saying you're
respectful.
doing that, but
I'm
basically,
not-
nudge, nudge, wink, wink. You're doing exactly that, aren't you? That's what you're saying.
I'm being rumpus while I'm being very.
Yes, because you
and cool
use
here.
double speak, expect rumpusing.
I'm being rumpus
that's
by
funny.
my own friends. Unbelievable.
Ted, there are no friends. We're all enemies.
Oh, that's auto hooks, I guess.
Yeah.
What
That'll be
community?
1984.
What community?
Go on then. What's your
Well-
1984 reference?
All right. So the reason I said it is because on past shows, you have said similar things, and that they want you to see it. This is why they put it out there, and they control the narrative. So that's why I said it,
And that's true.
and I agree with you.
Yeah, I think
there's
what
no-
Nathan's getting at is you might not be referencing the 1984 reference like accurately enough because Nathan's got a different view on the reference of 1984, right?
It depends
That is
which month in the year.
removing the bad stuff that was in the media that was true and removing it so people don't see the truth.
Yeah, that's the
Right.
main
No, I-
job of the
I see what
character,
you're
who's the main character.
Well, remember your quote on the mathematicians can do whatever they want.
Oh, in terms of the stars and being able to have it
Yeah.
close or far.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he's
Yeah,
getting
that's
tortured.
what I'm referencing.
That's when he's being tortured.
No, I know, but what I'm referencing is just like how we take on the pseudo science and space agencies and their violation of second law of thermodynamics and all the huckstering that NASA does. Yeah, they do all that all day long, and we're shining light on it. And so people could say to us, "Well, how do we know what you're telling us is the truth?" Well, we're taking what they're putting out, and we're commenting on it, and we're making logical arguments for it. Now you have to decide who's right.
Do they? I don't care. I don't care if you decide who's right. I don't care, sod off. I don't care. That's the terrible
but
thing. I've got the
some of us
same
do.
attitude towards whether or not my information is accepted or rejected by the general populace or the audience who I have, small though that may be, right? You don't. If you're watching this right now, what's that you say? You don't accept it? Oh, well. Never mind. It's not going to affect my day in the slightest.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I don't care in one sense the way you said, but I care in the other sense. I care to do it because I care for my fellow man, but I don't care what they do with the information because I can't control that anyway.
Exactly. Everyone's entitled to their own beliefs. Believe whatever you like. Take the information, leave the information, reject the information, challenge it vehemently, hopefully. Great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I got involved in a back and forth about whatever your views are about this particular. I'm going to be careful with my words for Nathan's benefit, his channel's benefit, but this current topic that everybody speaks about, with the worldwide thing. But basically, the question was, can you accept the numbers that we're being told are true? And my answer was, well, where's the evidence that the numbers are true? How do you validate and verify that these numbers are actually true?
Hold on.
And of course, we can't do that.
I mean, numbers are true. Numbers are abstract.
Numbers of what?
Numbers of what? No. It's a description. Is the description right? When we're talking about gravity or anything else that's mathematically reified, we just go, you're talking about the abstract. And now you're saying, do I accept that the maths is correct? Well, it's just maths. It's just abstract.
Yeah, but we were talking about the numbers involved because,
right.
Obviously,
How is that any different?
But whatever's going on in this world right now in terms of this big worldwide event that we're talking about, and there's something happening, right? And it's clearly not. I don't think it's what we're being told, and I don't believe what we're being told. I believe something else is going on, but I don't know what. And we were talking about at what point is it acceptable to question the numbers, because what we're being told doesn't seem to be matching up. And basically, if you're a diehard ball earther that tends to believe 9/11, tends to believe Apollo, tends to believe all the things that we laugh at, then you've got to accept the numbers all the time and rely on the numbers as truth.
No, they
But
don't.
is there ever a point with these people where they question it? And the answer is no. They'll never, ever question anything. So, in other words, the bigger picture is that critical thought isn't permitted on their argument at all. They're not allowed to critically analyze anything. And I just think that's a bad day for humanity if that's the conclusion of the point with these official stories that we get told. Because if they never critically analyze anything, you're never going to learn anything. But
I don't think you're right. I don't think they're prevented. They're not prevented from critical analysis of anything. They're just in a cognitive bias towards reification of mathematics. So when you're saying, should you accept these numbers, abstractions, descriptions, as true, well, no more than, Anthony, I would accept a poem about this travesty as being... You get my point?
Yeah, that was a really good comparison, the poem to mathematics, because it's abstract and it's descriptive and it's beautiful.
Oh, that was music to my ears, Anthony. So quickly you've come over to my side of the thinking. This is typically how you behave with everything we discuss. Yet suddenly you're on the normie vibe of should the numbers be considered true? Well, that's physics, isn't it? If you're going to tell me about some natural phenomena, you've not been specific enough for me to know what you're talking about. But if there's a natural phenomena occurring, you know what? We've got a method for establishing cause. Is there a cause being claimed? Oh, you can bet your life there's a cause being claimed. Right, well, we've got a method for establishing that, haven't we? Is that going to get my channel shut down if I challenge whether or not we've got established scientific validity to any claims being made with maths? No, that's never going to get me shut down, Anthony. Ever.
Well, it was interesting because the point, we got to talk about whether or not this boogeyman even existed. Because it's like I'm saying, all these sanctions that are being put in and the effects on people's day-to-day living is stark. It's affecting people. But we need to know that the boogeyman actually exists, not that how do we deal with it. And the evidence just isn't there for it. And I'm like, can we see this evidence? And the other part,
I know what you're talking about now. Right.
The evidence is in the numbers.
Okay, so you're talking about Corona. Right, Corona's done. Its magic trick's over. That magic trick is no longer a magic trick. It's done. The new normal arrived in February, when they all started laying out the new laws. That's when I crapped my pants and publicly moaned about it. About the laws specifically and what they detailed, how much people around me understood what they were or even if they existed. That's what got my goat. Now, the magic trick's over. You can talk about it all you want. It's done. New normal is here. For anyone watching and who doesn't recognise this already, the new normal arrived in February. It's just how quickly you got adjusted to it.
Nathan's right.
Me, it took about 24 hours of, fear, anxiety, moaning about it to my friends, warning others. And then I got over it and recognised that you're just going to have to get used to this. The laws have been passed and the new normal already arrived, whether you recognise that it arrived when you weren't looking in the laws and you were all worried about dying of a cold. Yet while you were all crapping your pants, the laws were being changed. That's what you needed to worry about. That's what I moaned about. But you can carry on discussing this forever now. No one's going to stop you.
Thank you for unmuting me. Speaking about the numbers, it was 140-something thousand people that were reported that died from COVID, but the CDC just announced that only 9,000-something actually died from COVID. So the numbers were skewed. It's only like 6% of the deaths reported were actually COVID, but it was mainly the elderly and people with underlying conditions. So the numbers, quote unquote,
that doesn't matter anymore.
Sorry, you're missing 2 points. Number one,
doesn't matter because the magic trick is done.
Right. Number one, the magic trick is done. Number two, no, they weren't skewed. They're just descriptions. Now, the fact that you've underlined the certain caveats as part of this beautiful poetry of describing things with numbers, that doesn't make them inaccurate. That just means that there's a certain skew on the numbers when they describe what's happening. And I'm in no doubt that they accurately described it. And there was details that may have been left out, but that's for reasons of consistency in news. So, while it might seem like I'm belittling you for this, and I am, I'm saying that this is abstract. Like I told Anthony, who cares? Anyway, we've got a live show to talk about actual concerns with the nature of reality rather than the abstractions of maths on TV.
day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected. And if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by 10th Man, the Adam Meakin, Sleeping Warrior, Flatzoid, Brian, Arwin, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hey.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Any signs of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
Not from Idaho.
Sorry, ¿cómo estás?
Nathan, you'd never be expected to see the geometric horizon because refraction obscures it.
They claim it blocks boats and buildings with its physical nature, and they claim geometry of its physical nature. So their basis in claim is physical geometry, Anthony.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be expected to see it, Nathan, because refraction can bend stuff from behind the horizon, so it would appear like it's flat, but it's actually refracted.
You can't prove that terrestrial refraction exists. It's
But-
unprovable, technically.
Okay. Terrestrial refraction, Arwin, would be 7/6R. So if you're saying that the line to the horizon is a refracted line, that would be deviated from straight? Am I right?
Curved.
Or curved, whatever. Well, to acquire the geometry to apply this refraction that Arwin mentioned, terrestrial refraction 7/6 of the radius, you'd require geometry. So obviously, you're using an R value in your refracted value. So
Yeah,
to acquire said geometry, you'd need a straight line to the horizon. That would be called a tangent, fundamental to the geometry. Do you understand that?
Yeah, but it's not always straight, is it? Because it follows a curve.
A tangent in geometry is always straight, Anthony.
Yeah, but because it's subject to refraction, it curves. So it begins straight, but it ends up being a curve.
No, you don't understand a basic premise of geometry. A tangent is straight. End statement. Not bent by refraction. It's a geometric term describing a straight line that meets this curve point in geometry, and that is assumed to be the horizon in globe geometry, requiring a tangent. Straight line, Anthony. Not bent, not curved. Straight.
It's tiny amounts of variation, but I can concede that it's a straight line, but it's curved really.
No.
I think what Nathan is saying. I think what Nathan is saying is that for there to be a 7/6 refraction, you need to have an R value that matches that, or that is or for that to be based on it.
No, that's not what he's saying, actually. He's saying that terrestrial refraction as a concept is unprovable because it requires you to prove the geometry, which you then can't because you can't have straight lines visually anymore to prove that geometry. It's like a paradoxical claim.
Precisely. Yeah. It's a paradoxical claim that implodes upon itself when you assert that something with a geometric R value has no way of acquisition because you have no tangent line to acquire the R value. So it's, what was your word? That was beautiful, Arwin. Paradoxical. Precisely.
I was being sarcastic, Arwin.
I got what you were doing. Don't worry, you didn't have to explain that, Brian.
He took the thunder away, Nathan.
That's Arwen's bag.
Yeah, I was trying to do the same thing, but he did it faster than me. He got in there ahead of me. So.
Arwen's on fire, man. That was really concise. Hey, Adam, by the way, I haven't heard from you. And hey, Paul.
Afternoon. I was going to chip in, but then Owen pulled out paradoxical, which summed it up nice. So, yeah, that is the crux.
Yeah, the globe model dies because it suffers a paradox, which is to say that if you can't acquire a geometric tangent point at the horizon because all lines are bent, then you can't apply refraction with an R value that has geometry that needs a straight line. It's a paradox. That's what it takes that much for us to formulate their argument into a point where it's paradoxical. Is that the right word? Paradoxical. For us to actually succeed in a win.
Paradoxical, yeah.
Yeah, paradoxical.
So
could just use contradictory.
We have to take their begging the question fallacy and take it to the extent that their argument becomes paradoxical in rebuttal. How mad is that? How far have we got to go with these fundies? It's mad, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, and it's not just self-contradictory, Tony, because self-contradictory just is like on the spot disproving itself, but this is like impossible to prove.
I didn't say self-contradictory, I just said contradictory. Self-contradictory would be a circular reference, wouldn't it? You can't have contradictory and then self-contradictory, because wouldn't the self be then contradicting the contradiction?
What?
Meanwhile,
the word paradoxical could be substituted, or it could be what's the word I'm looking for? Conflated with what's the word? I've just lost the word. What's the word? Contradictory. Yeah, you can conflate the two words. It's not like force and effect, cause and effect that ballers do with gravity. You can't conflate those two because they are opposites. But you can conflate paradoxical and contradictory. They are similar words. Similes.
What about and or?
Let's not do that one. That's a rumpus-only conversation. Just so there's a comparison. So there's an accurate paradox. So the idea in time travel that you can't kill your own grandfather would be a paradox, which is to say that if you went back in time and you killed the person that was to create your existence, you couldn't be in existence to kill them. So that's a paradox. It's an impossibility, a circular event that can't take place because one thing cannot then lead to the other thing happening. Well, this is the same. You can't acquire an R value to base terrestrial refraction on because you don't have a tangent. So their rebuttal to the black swan, which is to demonstrate beyond all certitude that we do not have a geometric horizon, and Anthony's rebuttal is to say, well, we wouldn't expect to see a geometric horizon, but it's absolutely required for geometry to have taken place because your refraction that you're coming back with has an R in it, and that's geometric, therefore needs a tangent. So it's a self-defeating argument. The globe becomes mathematically paradoxical, or a mathematical paradox. You can't assert we're on a sphere. It's a mathematical certitude at this point. You can't have the maths they assert. It's been debunked 6 ways from Sunday. It doesn't have any perspective. It's taking place in a view that you can't experience with your own eyes because you see the side of your own head. It's been smashed. The R value can't be measured, can't be seen, only exists in the maths. These are quotes from Globers. How dead's it got to be in 2020?
What's really interesting is that we came to that point and we accepted that, yeah, you can't have one without the other. It's contradicts, one contradicts the other. It can't be in existence. But how many times did other people come to that conclusion who worked in those fields and probably still do? And just with that and other contradictions just the same, although that is the biggest one, and just said, I don't know, it all must work itself out and just ignore it.
Well, I think they just ignored it.
If I can add something to the whole thing, because I have been thinking about it, technically it's not completely unprovable. But hold on, it's only paradoxically unprovable through optics, specifically. That's where it's unprovable. But hey, if you could have an actual perfectly straight tape measure, a ruler, physical, mechanical things to measure the geometry with, then you could. Only after doing that could you prove a terrestrial refraction type setup. But I guarantee you that's not going to happen because
you couldn't do that either. Do you want to know why?
Physically a globe.
You couldn't do that either. Do you want to know why?
Why?
Because as soon as you asserted that you're going to be drawing a measurement, well, your measurement is going to be a tangent line. You're saying, well, if I can physically draw a tangent line, as in by draw, I mean draw it out like a ruler in physicality to a point in the distance. But then you're guilty of actually physical reification, because you're suggesting that we adhere to the reification that Craig Fight the Flat Earth used, which is to say, if I assume, as the geodetic surveyors do, that the line I draw is a tangent line, well, what does that imply? Well, it implies the begging the question fallacy that is the assertion that you've got a curved surface that line's going to meet. So you're automatically assuming that the ground you're going to draw that line to is curved because you're assuming that it's going to be a tangent when you physically make that line with a tape measure. So you're guilty of... Go on.
But not entirely, though. I know I understand your point, but that is still relying on optics and then basically using presuppositions to calculate it all together. That's not what I meant. No, I literally mean testing the tangent. Get a literal straight thing and see if it is a tangent.
The tangent? What tangent? The tangent... The only tangent you're going to be telling me about is going to be the one that you assume is to the point where your line that you're physically drawing intersects the curved surface you're assuming is beneath your feet, Arwin.
Right. Well, you would be able to test that very...
Wrong.
Hold on, please, I have a really good point. Look, it's testing whether it is or not. So if you have a giant, measurably confirmed straight thing, giant, 100 kilometers, and then see if it's going to rest on a particular spot, like a tangent, or whether it's actually going to touch down.
We won't. Hold on. Let me just tell Arwin about this image we've got called the Black Swan.
I know, that's a lot easier to do that.
Can I just check, Arwin? I agree with what you just said. Whose burden of proof is it to prove that point?
Yeah, exactly. The Globers. They're
Correct.
the ones that are in need of this actual tangent to happen. No, they just presuppose it. Well, they'd have to physically measure it because you can't derive it from optics. That's a
Tangent
paradox.
to what, Arwin?
A curve.
Curve of what? The tangent to what? Where's he bringing this tangent?
He just... What Arwin's done very cleverly there, Brian, is agreed with me and then carried on making the same point like his agreement, which completely obliterates his point, is somehow irrelevant. That's what ballers also do, I might add. So he's gone, yes, right. That was where I interrupted and went, wrong. No, we're not going to assume the ground beneath us has got a curved surface, Arwin. That's a presupposition that you're then proposing we measure based on your presupposition. No.
Not we, them. They got to do it. If they want to bring some proof to their claim.
Weasel. Now he's blaming them.
It's
you verbalising it. You take the... No, I'm only joking. Yeah, it's all their fault.
That's okay. Yeah?
Any more on... Go on, sorry,
Plazoid. In plane geometry, do parallel lines cross?
In plane geometry? Euclidean geometry? Do parallel lines cross? No, they're parallel.
So, there we go.
There we go. What?
No tangent.
I still, sorry, Anthony, 1 second. I'm still confused as to where exactly you're bringing this tape measure, Alan.
Me? I don't have that tape. It's just like, this is the super, super, super remote conception of if they really want to get out of this paradox based on a visual conclusion of terrestrial refraction, then they have to get really physical. It's almost, it's intangible. And we already know that the end result of such an more empirical test would result in that, of course, it's not tangent, of course. But
they really where are they bringing it to? Where are they bringing this to? Where are they bringing the end? Like they say, okay, they start with it on solid land. Where do they bring the end of the tape to?
Well, it wouldn't be a tape. It would have to be a solid, non-bendable...
That's not what he asked. That's not what he asked.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, it's not what I asked.
I don't know, across the desert of the Sahara and over the oceans.
To what point?
Not what I asked either.
To what point? That's what he's asking. Where they're taking it to? Where's the point where the tangent intersects the curve you're assuming, Arwin? That's what he's asking.
Well... God, this is all taking it very literal, but I know it would come down to you would rest the thing on, somewhere, and then just see.
Somewhere.
Over distance.
Oh God! Right, stop. Right,
height.
what Arwen is describing, if you're a baller and you're not a weasel that's changing we and they around so he can shift blame. Right, if you're not that guy, then the it in this example is the horizon, reified by mathematics inside view to be a tangent point. But this is the horizon, right, Arwen?
No. That's useless. The horizon is always optical anyway. It's already admitted that even
disclaimed
if
this.
the Earth or a globe, the horizon is optical. But the point
and
is,
it's not. You've disclaimed that though. You said not optically. Hold on, Arwen. You disclaimed at the beginning, not optical. So this is the end, right? Please, God, let this be the end.
What?
Not optical. You said at the beginning you couldn't do it optically, specifically. Now you're saying, but that would be optical, right? Okay, so that's the end then. Thank God.
Right. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, optically, terrestrial refraction is a dead end. You can't prove terrestrial refraction through optics because it's paradoxical. It's impossible. It doesn't exist, I'll tell you right there. But if it would exist, the only way to prove it is physically, not through optics. And that's what I tried to describe.
And that can't be done because that would require...
of course.
Let me just conclude then.
Yeah,
and that wouldn't be possible.
That's why Slice Barkane's looking down because Slice Barkane's trying to do a water test where he looks down the length of the water tubes and says that I can optically determine whether or not the Earth is falling away from the tubes or not. And Arwen's saying you can't do it optically. You have to measure it, physically measure it to see whether or not it actually is. Because obviously your perception of optical horizons and optical effects is perceptive. It's not accurately measured. That's the point.
But Riley, you forgot. Sly thinks perspective has nothing to do with optics.
Yeah, he thinks it's an art costume, doesn't he?
What Arwen is stating, Arwen, if I'm not correct, is that you're stating establishing a horizontal and seeing where the physical curve falls away from the physical horizontal.
What physical curve? The one he's assuming. the one he's assuming is that the physical curve? The one he assumes when he describes the line he draws out to be a tangent.
Yeah.
Yeah. But look, Nathan, this is all hyper conceptual because it's hyper concept. It's like if the Earth turned out to be a globe after all, which there's no evidence for really.
Can I address
then the only way
Arwen
to do it would be like that because you can't arrive to terrestrial refraction. You can't prove terrestrial refraction through optics because it makes geometry impossible.
Correct.
So
you need to talk to Dave.
Can I address the question to Arwen?
Arwen is ace. Can I just say that? Arwen is ace. He's amongst the best people in the world, and this is why. He's developed a very heated conversation out of this. He's on our side. How many other people can do that? Hey, by the way, Sleeping Warrior.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah,
can I ask a question on this
you say that as well when you just come in?
We established in the pre-show that Anthony's an auto-hoaxer.
What? Oh, we found that out in 1984.
He's joking out and ignore him.
Okay.
We move on. Is there any more on this evidence of Earth curve?
Tent wanted to ask a question, I think.
Go ahead, Tent. Go ahead.
10th and then I'll have a go.
Yes. Okay. Actually, if I could have Adam role play with me, that'd be great. Then I'll just hand it off to him to finish. So, Adam, the ballers claim the Earth is a sphere with a radius, correct?
Am I role playing a baller here?
No, just facts. Just
okay. Yes.
Facts. And they give us a number for that radius of 3959, correct?
Yeah.
And when that established where the curve would begin from the observer's height, if a measurement was being taken of any type.
Yeah.
So when Al-Biruni did his test back in the day, and they get the geometric horizon from that, it would have to match what we know about the Earth, the circumference, the radius. It couldn't be any further than the geometry would allow, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, certainly
So
by that. Well, isn't he defining the geometry there?
Well, if you can just, for the sake of my question, if geometry is standalone and measurements are what they are, and a straight line is a straight line, and it meets the curve, that's where the Earth curve should begin. That's where the arc of the sphere should begin, and it should block the bottom of boats and buildings if we were a sphere, correct?
Yeah.
When it doesn't do that, and you have evidence that it's further than the 1.22 miles at the 1 foot observer height, what does that do to the claim that Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959?
It invalidates it.
Thank you. I pass it over to you.
Mine was just more to come on what Arwen was saying. If we allowed Arwen's big long line and stuck another line parallel to it that we knew was parallel, would they look parallel optically?
No.
No.
No, you'd have to actually go to every part and then physically confirm that it is parallel, that the distance is the same. Every part.
What I asked. Would it look? No, it would converge.
Yeah. So drawing straight lines on a picture would seem to be denial of perspective. If we know two parallel lines will converge, then why are we looking at pictures like that? Again, it's not taking into account perspective or size reduction at distance.
So to clarify your question, you're asking, why would we observe or compare a photograph or something we actually observe with our own eyes to a mathematical reification that takes that and puts it into a side-on perspective where we see our own head and parallel lines remaining parallel, when in reality they converge with optics, which is what's being used to compare in these maths? Why would that be done? Is that your question?
Yeah, exemplified by, I'd say, train tracks is probably the best one.
So why would they show train tracks extending left to right with no angular size reduction or convergence? It's to hijack that effect we call perspective and call it Earth curve. That's why.
Done well for 100 or so years, haven't they?
Anybody else got anything? It's the longest session we've had so far today on Earth curve. Housekeeping question, 23 minutes.
Yeah, but Nathan, you did ask, was there any evidence of geometric horizon? And the answer that ballers always give is, well, you wouldn't expect to see it, and that's how we have to address it. It's not like we're not as refined as what we need to be, but we're working on it so that we get a really refined, concise answer. But that is their current comeback. So unfortunately, I'm just reciting the ballers' argument so that the audience can listen and hopefully realize that it's very convoluted.
Yeah, but that comeback is
hold on, Owen.
excuse.
Hold on. Let me
It's
just get
an
clarity
excuse.
again. Hold on, Owen. Sorry. You can put your two penny worth in a second. Let me just get clarity. You're saying that the comeback to this argument that we can't see it, my question rather, any evidence of a geometric physical sphere edge horizon, is the comeback that we can't see a geometric horizon. I just clarify this for the audience also then. The geometric horizon that I'm asking for evidence of and we're told we cannot see, only exists in the maths, and we wouldn't expect to see, is Earth curve. So we're told we wouldn't expect to see Earth curve, and we're told Earth curve only exists in the geometric maths. So the rebuttal is we wouldn't expect to see Earth curve. That's what you're telling me.
Yeah, of course. We wouldn't expect to see it, Nathan. It's mathematical.
So when we're told
not
that
expected to see the thing that blocks things.
Yeah, that is their comeback. That's what they say.
Just repeat that, Adam. Hold on. I was going to say it, but you repeat it, Adam, please.
So we're not expected to see the thing that's blocking our obstruction of things.
Correct.
That's concise and very unclear.
So we don't see the Earth curve they tell us we see blocking things. Also a paradox.
Correct. We don't see it because of refraction, Nathan.
So we don't see the thing that blocks boats and buildings because of refraction.
No, we don't see the geometric one. We see the optical one that we perceive in our, because we live in a geometrically three-dimensional world, but it's affected by refraction, Nathan, and that flattens it all out to make it look flat. It's not
And
really
the refraction,
flat, it's curved.
and as we discussed earlier, the refraction is 7/6 of the radius, or a derivative thereof, and that would require the geometric radius. Therefore, necessitates a straight line to this point, the horizon that you're saying is bent. Also a paradox.
Yes. I'm totally okay with that, Nate.
So to put it mildly, if I was a globe believer right now watching, I'd be under the apprehension that we had mathematical certitude, that's abstract descriptions, for the assertion that there's a sphere beneath our feet, when in reality it's paradoxically impossible to have a sphere beneath your feet, because you can't derive an R value to then claim refraction's bending the horizon with R that cannot be derived.
No, Nathan, you don't understand. You don't understand that refraction can do whatever we want it to do, and it can get over your paradox because we can just apply a bit of maths and it's done.
But their acquisition of the R value is done outside of maths in the reality of our world, and their idea that the horizon is a physical sphere edge called Earth curve that can be measured. So if it can only be done in the maths, cannot be measured in reality, then this notion that we're on a sphere is debunked.
Does light conform to shapes?
You just don't understand, Nathan.
I think what's happening... Sorry, Nathan.
Does light conform to shapes?
Conform to shape? I'm going to say no.
Then how the refraction?
It doesn't matter. They can't even prove that the refraction is there in the first place because they have no way to get the geometry they need through optics.
No
They have to
refraction.
physically measure the radius now in order to establish terrestrial refraction.
Yep, at some stage you've got to measure it, and you can't measure that which cannot be measured and only exists in maths. Bye-bye, globe. It was nothing but a reification of a philosophy to understand the movement of stars. It's pathetic, we all fell for it, it's our own fault. Any more for any more?
So to conclude,
what's happening here is... Sorry, I leave you go myself.
So just to conclude the point, when you ask for evidence, physical evidence or real world evidence of the geometric horizon, look how much of a clusterfuck it is. You can't get to a conclusion because the ball is always just revert back to refraction to explain it's the nonsense. That's it. But they just don't accept that it's optical and it's not real, and they just won't ever accept it. It's just silly.
Doesn't change the paradox.
So what's happening...
Go, Brian, go.
Sorry, coming at the wrong times. What's happening here is the reification of a mathematical equation and the claim that this is blocking things. And when this is disproven, it's backed up by a secondary mathematical equation, the space-time light, that is dependent on the reality of the original mathematical equation. So they have two maths equations. The second one is backing up the first one, but the second one is dependent on the first one. And the second one is used as a defense when the first one can't be proven.
Yeah, it's what QE fondly calls a double your trouble begging the question fallacy. So they beg the question of R, and when you debunk their geometry of R, they say, well, if I assume 7/6 of R, it's like, well, you've already assumed R, we've debunked it, now you're just inserting it into a refraction value that utilises the thing we've debunked. Double your trouble begging the question fallacy. Spot on, Brian.
I get it.
That was 30 minutes on Earth curve.
No, 30 minutes on geometric horizon.
I'm going to retitle the show Earth Curve. I'm not often going to give the shows with numbers a...
Isn't it funny that how much of a complicated argument it is just to us? Because that thing that they all used to say, Galileo showed that with a telescope that boats went over the horizon. The minute you start asking, what is the horizon? It becomes really messy really quick.
Why does it take 30 minutes if we got the black swan?
Because they need to justify why it's not their horizon, but we can think of it as their horizon.
I blame Arwin.
Yeah.
Me?
Arwin's
yeah, and your big tape measure.
You your tangent that you're assuming.
Not Earth curvature though, but like how would you do that?
Well,
because the ballers are completely lost in their own nonsense. You know, they don't even know what they're doing wrong anymore. They just got used to asserting nonsense all day long and think that's okay.
technically, Arwen. Sorry, Anthony.
Go
just
Brian,
saying,
go.
technically, Bev Troy thinking is doing what Arwen is talking about, as he's going to establish a horizontal.
But the thing is, I see that's futile. He's got Euclid on his side. What more does he need? These are fundamental principles that he's dealing with. And he's going to use the principles that they're based on, the axioms that these are based on, to prove that they're true. Well, they're already laid down as axioms.
Yeah, the problem is the ballers don't understand that it's their burden to prove that the Earth is a tangent to a curved surface when you're doing your observations. But because they don't accept that it's their burden to prove, and they think that we've got to disprove it, somehow they reverse the burden of proof. Not that we prove our argument, but now we've got to disprove their argument in the first place, even though they've never demonstrated it to be true. They just accept that that's the way it is. So it's like a burden of proof reversal, but we're not actually proving that the Earth's curved. We're disproving the claim that they believe because they demand that it's already established. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they demand that we accept that they will automatically beg the question. Yeah, that just leads to a pummeling, though, doesn't it?
The ballers are like inmates in an asylum who think they're running the asylum.
The problem they have is they want to keep on doing exactly what Anthony said, because that means that the onus is not on them to prove non-Euclidean geometry. Because if they need non-Euclidean geometry, and if they can't show that in reality, then they have to send that ball straight back to our side to somehow disprove, their claim.
And to be honest, it's really worth because when we talk about Euclidean and non-Euclidean geometry, right? To the average normie, including myself, when someone says non-Euclidean geometry, what really does it mean? And it's not really something you can describe with words very easily. But if you go online and go onto YouTube and type in models of non-Euclidean geometry, you can see people that are walking around in virtual worlds where they've created themselves to demonstrate how non-Euclidean geometry can be conceptualized, but obviously does not work in real world. And what I mean by that is, for example, a guy walked past a window imagine you're in first person mode and you're walking around in a room and you walk past a window and you see on the other side of the window there is a scenery, and then you see that there's a door approaching that's going to let you out into that area. So you go to the door and then you realize that area is not the same. So you realize, hang on a minute, there's something wrong in my head there. You go back to the window to see what was outside the window. And then you realize that there's something hawky-pawky going on, because what's out the window should be the same as what's out the door. But when you go to the door in further on in the game, it's completely different. And that's an example of non-Euclidean geometry. It completely doesn't work on the real world. It's like complete bullshit. But that's what you've got to understand is non-Euclidean. So just go to YouTube, type in non-Euclidean geometry modeled, and then just look at how they demonstrate it. And then you can see that they're arguing for non-Euclidean geometry as though it's acceptable. And you realize it's complete hogwash.
Well, that's insanity then. That's total insanity.
Go on, Neil. You go first, then Brian. Go ahead, Neil.
I said then that's insanity. Total insanity.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's insanity.
Go ahead, Brian.
Thanks, Nathan. Sorry, Neil. Bev laid that. I was speaking about Bev when I was speaking about it there some while back, weeks ago. And the best way to lay that out is the longitude lines, because they are non-Euclidean geometry, because they're not parallel. They're meeting at two ends of a ball. So the latitude longitude grid, especially the longitude lines, are non-Euclidean geometry. And that's the very thing they can't prove.
So, about that geometric horizon, yeah, there is no evidence for it, Nathan. You just got to basically believe it and accept it, regardless of any evidence to the contrary, and then accuse anybody and ridicule anybody that dare question your religious belief. That's basically the position.
Okay, no, I don't do that. I tend to laugh at people that come here and say, well, I'm automatically right. I know it's a sphere, therefore, when I assert my begging the question fallacy and assume that it's a sphere when I give my example, I just point out that that's begging the question and then laugh at them.
Just mention for me, it's a bit of a hijacking this, or an adopting, as if the terms Euclidean and non-Euclidean relate directly to the Earth. They're just mathematical different ways you have to do things. Non-Euclidean, when I did it wasn't anything to do with the shape of the Earth. It was just how you calculate a point or a place when that place is on it can be a ball, it can be different shapes as well. But do you know what I mean? That involve R values. So it's intrinsically linked to the R. The issue, that's what those two terms mean for me. But it's kind of, to me, like being hijacked as if the term non-Euclidean validates the ball, and I think that's what they fail.
That is what. That is what they're doing. They're trying to use non-Euclidean geometry to validate the ball. But when you see non-Euclidean geometry modeled out, you instantly realize that's nonsense, because it's like spooky dokey in the sense that it's how you'd imagine being on drugs in the 70s or whatever, because it's like it doesn't follow naturally. It's unnatural when you see it modeled out.
Spooky dokies were given away free in cornflakes packets, and they were attached to the spokes of your bike and made a ping sound as they fell down.
That's what Nathan was trying to say earlier, is they're using this non-Euclidean to make straight be curved, but you got to have a tangent is a straight line, so they got to curve it somehow.
Well, no, they just assume it.
You can have that curve in Euclidean.
You can't.
That's two-dimensional, so you can have it in there, but it's more about moving to a different point on that surface of a ball, for example. That is when you bring non-Euclidean.
But don't they bring it in when they want to say straight is curved?
No, it's just a way of assuming.
No, I'm not saying you can't. I think that's a shape. Circle is a shape, but that's okay. But aren't they trying to say straight is curved and curved is straight?
Yeah, that is what they're saying.
Yeah.
Straight is curved and curved is straight.
Well, you can't do that. That's a violation of the law of non-contradiction. You can't be two things at one time.
That is literally, in a nutshell, what they say. Straight is curved and curved is straight. And depending on what they need at the time, they'll flip between the two interchangeably to basically justify their position. Well, that doesn't justify the position. It conflates and confuses and deceives. That's literally what's happening.
Yeah, but to say curved straight, if they're then trying to conflate that as if to say that is what non-Euclidean geometry says, that isn't the case. Non-Euclidean is just a way of calculating the rate of change of these x and y and z coordinates, which are very simple in Euclidean, because it has to take into account the R. So that's all it is. It doesn't justify it, and it certainly doesn't transmute a straight line into a curved line when you say, oh, it's non-Euclidean. That doesn't what it means to me. That's not.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree. I'm not sure I agree with that. If you just go to Google and type it at YouTube and type in non-Euclidean geometry modeled, and then look at how they express it, that explains everything.
But they're saying it's only a model.
What Adam's trying to say is
representation of reality.
It's just a way of measuring something, and I'm trying to say they just use it as a justification to beg the question. So to justify why they've got a tangent to begin with, they can use that as a justification. Now, Adam's saying just because there's a method doesn't mean that it applies in this instance, even though they say it's applicable. That's all Adam's saying.
Adam, you know a cylinder of equal dimension all the way through, that has a radius at any point through that, because it's a cylinder. But it also has a flat edge at the top, let's just say, or a length. The ballers, they work within a cylinder, don't they? Because they're always talking about the curve that's out in front of us, but they never can deal with anything left or right. It's always flat.
So that, oh God, man, this is going back. But for me, I would use Euclidean geometry to calculate all my positions there, because there isn't a third component making, you can break it down. But if you were to do it on a ball, it's just impossible to try and calculate. You've got to come off the ball to calculate, which is why you use non-Euclidean. It's just a method of complex calculation that you use if you're on a ball, and you'd only use it if you're on a ball. But if you are on a ball, you have to use it, because
there it is. Say it again. Say that one more time, please, Adam.
if you are on a ball, though, you have to use it. You have
There
to.
it is, a justification. Well, I automatically assume we're on a ball. Therefore, that's what I've got to use, right? So it's just, as I keep trying to interject, a means of justifying their assumption that they've got a curved surface to draw a tangent to. It's just a means of justifying the begging the question. And if you ask them, they'd say, well, I already know it's a sphere. It's so ingrained into them. That's all it is.
Exactly, Dave.
Right, and it's very funny how that works out. Basically, they presuppose it has to be a sphere, then they draw everything, all the methods and all that, the systems, they draw it in, because if it were a sphere, they would have to. It's not, but they're still going to use it because they presuppose it's a sphere, and thereby fooling outsiders that aren't too well aware of all of this, that it actually is a sphere, because, hey, they're using this and you would need to on a sphere, right? And that's kind of part of the trick too, the bluff.
Right, but that's where the black swan destroys that presupposition, because we asked them, in your presupposed sphere, what's the radius? They say 3959, and then we applied that number, and at 1.22 miles, it should be there in the black swan picture, but it's not. So bye-bye.
Yeah, that didn't add anything to my point, but yeah.
I wasn't trying to add to your point. I was making a greater point. Overall, they are presupposing everything. Fine, go ahead. Until you prove it, it's still going to be in the category of a presupposition. So prove it to me. What's your radius of this thing that you're trying to prove? They'll say 3959. I said, well, let's just see where that Earth curve should start then at 1 foot observer height. To be at 1.22 miles, right? Yeah, okay, let's go check it out. Well, it's not. It's well over 10 miles.
It is 10th, but you can never see it because of refraction.
No, we saw it in the black swan picture. Earth curve.
God, Tony, don't start from the beginning again.
That's what they do.
It's 45 minutes so far.
I said
The
you are.
geometric horizon is Earth curve.
No, to be fair, I'm more than happy for this to go on. Yeah, drill it into him, Anthony. What, at this point, a glober would do is then make the claim again. Well, refraction. What, based on R that you can't acquire geometry for, leaving you with a paradox, Anthony? More than happy to highlight that 10 more times, Arwin.
Okay. I guess this is the housekeeping question number 1 show.
It's turned into that. Yeah, I've retitled it Earth Curve. So yeah, it certainly seems that way. I don't mind. I'll move on with the housekeeping questions if this dries up.
No, that's very good.
I like it. You've got the best line in this show so far, Arwin. You know, paradox has not been uttered in this regard, but it is absolutely the most accurate description of what they have. You can't get an R if you haven't got a tangent. You can't assert 7/6R if you can't derive R. If it's all being used with 7/6R, refraction, because that's what's explaining why the horizon's moved. Therefore, no R. Therefore, can't be applied. You go round and round and round, all with it leaving Earth as a sphere dead. So it's paradox. It's a beautiful word.
Right, yeah. Well, you know, you guys kind of gave me that idea by making me realize at first that, oh, wait, if the horizon is refracted, then you have this donkey dick tangent and the geometry didn't work out anymore. Well, that's been kind of unveiled now in the last 2 weeks or maybe longer. And it's just sitting on that. It's like, yeah, but isn't that kind of like a paradox? And yeah, the more I listen to it, the more, yeah, it really is a paradox. So yeah, it was just time to actually use the word now.
Perfect. Go ahead, Pickle Rick.
Okay, so I would like to correct these statements. First of all, the tangent line, meaning the distance to the horizon, is not the way that you determine the radius value of the Earth. Not at all. Never, actually. That's not how you measure the radius of the Earth. And therefore, you claim that you can't measure an R if you don't have the tangent line, or can't observe the tangent line optically, is complete and utter bullshit. Secondly,
firstly, hold on, no, don't go on.
It's not
secondly.
at all derived from the radius of the Earth. It's
not secondly. Let's just address your first point. So you've just spewed out that it's not the way you measure. Now it's going to get addressed, whether you like it or not. So have you never heard of Al-Biruni?
Yeah, what did he do?
What you tell me? You're saying
you tell us what he do.
Saying that's
What
not
he
how
did.
you measure the tangent. That's precisely what Al-Biruni did. It's documented, well documented.
Really?
Yeah, that's what it's
Really?
did.
What did he do? What did he measure? Can you tell what he measured? Can
Yeah,
you say
the dip angle to
what
the
he actually
horizon,
measured?
which he presupposed was a physical sphere edge. And you're talking through me. Yeah, just suck on my balls. Yeah, he's claiming to draw a straight line to the physical horizon to derive R. Precisely what you said isn't how it's done. It's documented as being done by Al-Biruni.
What did he measure?
Yeah, my balls. Telling me how they taste. Now, ask me a question. Yeah, so Al-Biruni did it precisely that way, documented it in the historic account of how R was derived by Al-Biruni by doing the very thing you've said isn't how it's done. No, that's just you getting teabagged with the historical facts of how R was derived by Al-Biruni. And it's a flat earther doing it to you, Pickle Rick.
Calm down, Nathan.
Calm down? What, while I squat on your face? Yeah, Al-Biruni did the very thing you said isn't the way it's done, even though it's documented in history as having been done by Al-Biruni in the very way you say it isn't done. Making you a fool. Making you a moron who's being humiliated by me, the flat earther, who understands your own historic account of how R derives than you do.
Okay, Nathan, are you done?
What, done teabagging you? I can spend all day doing this. I love it. This is what I do for a living. It's ace. Someone comes in who's a fundy globe believer and tells me, no, you don't need to draw a straight line tangent to a horizon to derive R. And I come back with, why is there a historic account of Al-Biruni doing just that? And you ask me if I'm done. What, done teabagging you? No, mate. I'm absolutely pummeling you. Al-Biruni.
Al-Biruni measured.
Yeah, Al-Biruni measured it. That's right. What, with a tangent line to a physical horizon? But you've just said that's not how it's done. So you're wrong.
To the horizon.
Yeah, so you're wrong then. That is how it was done.
Okay.
Not okay. You asserted the opposite.
He did not measure the distance to the horizon. This was
Sorry,
not
he used a
part of
straight
this.
line
And that,
to the
that was
horizon
my statement.
in contradiction to what you claimed. And now you want to babble on about him not measuring a distance.
My statement was that the distance is not used.
Sorry, you said not a tangent, not a straight line tangent.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did though, didn't he? And he did. That's precisely what he did. So again, flat earther, teabagging globehead, as he mutters and stutters around his incorrect assertion that that's not how things are done when you measure the geometric R value, even though it's documented as being done by Al-Biruni. Yeah, a flat earther's nuts in your mouth. That's what you do.
Al-Biruni is the only way to measure the radius of the Earth.
What, with a straight tangent that you can't get because it's all refracted? That leaves you with a paradox, mate.
Yeah, take us through it.
No, it doesn't. If you have a proper understanding of science, then it doesn't.
Oh, really?
Is that your comeback? No,
Nathan,
but if you understood science.
Take you through it, Nathan.
And therefore you are not able to learn
That's
it.
not science, buddy. That's measurement.
Yeah, that's an ad hom. You don't understand? Wowee. Excellent rebuttal.
No, I'm not saying you don't understand. I'm saying you're talking through me instead of listening.
Yeah, you told me that you don't measure with a straight tangent to the horizon. Then I pointed out that that's exactly what's documented in history by Al-Biruni and that exact method, making you wrong. And what, you're going to tell me that I'm not listening to you? Well, no, what I'm actually doing is pummeling you.
I said we don't need the geometric horizon to determine the radius of the Earth. Yeah.
Oh, well, Al-Biruni did.
No, he didn't.
That's precisely what he did.
Strictly speaking, he's still what he observed optically is still not necessarily a geometric horizon.
Not necessarily. That's how he derived R. That's geometry. So you don't understand geometry. So you're just a retard. Why am I having this conversation with this retard? So you don't understand what geometry is by your last statement.
He measured the drop between the horizon and level. And since both were determined optically, both were influenced by the same refraction, and therefore it can.
So are you muttering about what he did is to describe what you said isn't how you do it?
Nathan, he gets pummeled
That
on
was just my
24/7
that was
chance
just
over
one
here.
of my statements, though. You do realize that, right?
Yeah, and it was wrong. Then I took it to
What
pieces systematically.
To determine the radius of the Earth, right?
Yeah, he used a straight line to the geometric horizon that he assumed and then derived an R value. That's what he actually did. You said that isn't how it's done, though.
Yes.
Yeah, so you were wrong.
Yeah, it's a bit.
Yeah, so you were wrong. Not yeah, but moving on. You were wrong. That is precisely how it's done. It's claimed to be done that way, but it would require a straight line called a tangent. Now, according to all the fundy morons who come here, we wouldn't expect to see a geometric horizon. Well, then Al-Biruni can't draw a straight line to it. That leaves you with a paradox. Can't derive R, can't use terrestrial refraction to move the horizon with R. Bye-bye globe model.
Yeah, I don't think he understands it, Nathan.
Of course he doesn't. He's thick. Doesn't understand what geometry is. Doesn't understand what's required. Straight line.
He doesn't understand what he said when he said measurement to the horizon. He actually thinks there is an actual measurement to the horizon.
Thank you, Paul.
A constant measurement.
On screen for the audience's benefit, a straight line from Al-Biruni's position up the mountain at A to the claim to be tangent point physical geometric horizon with a straight line to draw this triangle. And what's he doing it for? Well, to derive R! And he needs a straight line to do that. Now, what's the rebuttal to the black swan? Well, we don't have a straight line, it's refracted. Oh, well, you know what that means, don't you? Al-Biruni didn't have a straight line to do this calculation to get R. And what's that you say it's refracted with R? Oh, well, you're going to need to acquire R. And it seems that you can't do that if it's refracted. So you don't have an R to refract a horizon that can't be measured. It's a paradox. Thank you for putting that, Paul.
Right. Didn't Pickle Rick just basically say you don't need a tangent line to a sphere in order to measure R?
Yeah, that's when I said he didn't understand what geometry was.
Right. That's like literally don't understand. Or he just forgot because it's very convenient now because his ball proofs don't work out anymore.
Yeah, it's a bummer, isn't it?
Come on, man. I learned that shit when I was 8.
Well,
So
can I
basic geometry. Come on.
Go on, Paul.
need to know the distance. Didn't he say that? I heard him say that. Distance to the horizon. Did I miss that?
No, I think that was the correct point that he was trying to make, the kind of standard bolus of use. Now, as Nathan correctly said at the start, he measured the dip angle to the horizon, and what the measurement he'll have taken is the height of the mountain, and then use trig for the rest. But that was, I think, his attempt at making a truth statement to and waffle on.
Okay. So you don't need to know the distance to the horizon. You just need to know the height that you're on the mountain to determine the right angle part of the triangle, or the side, or the side that you're missing. Okay, right. I got you. Okay.
Yeah. So based on your picture,
I was like, wait a minute.
So from the top line, I'll just, for the audience's benefit, I'll just show you what I mean. This is his astronomical horizon. So he's got a zenith, i.e. a line from the top of his head down to, in the case of Al-Biruni, the centre of what he's going to assume is a sphere beneath his feet. And he's got a height from him to the top of the mountain. Now, with that assumed astronomical horizon, I've got to use their terminology, that's what it's called. He can then get this. I can't see from this distance what it's labelled. It looks like small a. That's the dip angle. That's what he's measuring. From that, he can then calculate with trig the rest of the distances to the horizon and give him his R value. That's the measurement he wants from this right angle, yeah, for his trig, based on the dip angle from an assumed astronomical horizon to the horizon he can see. That gives him R. That's geometry. Needs a straight line, though, between this point and this point. That's the main point we're making. We show them a horizon that's over here somewhere, and they go, well, the light's being bent. Well, how did you get the R value then, given that 7/6R is how you're saying the light's been bent? How'd you get R if it's always bent, if you can never get a straight line? Because if you've got refraction, you've got refraction. You can't have it both ways. You can't both have geometry with a straight line capable of being measured, and then the assertion that all lines are bent, refracted. So
I would like Picklewick to tell us how the origins. First of all, tell us what the origin of his supposed radius value is, and secondly, then tell us about how it wasn't a pre-assumption to start with. Because Al-Biruni had to pre-assume he was already on a sphere, on a globe, to come up with the calculation he did. So, would Picklewick, if he's listening, would you please come up with your origin of your radius value? Because if you're saying it's not Al-Biruni,
no, he said that's the only way.
Then
at one
what is
stage. At one stage, he said that's the only way.
Yeah, he did say that.
You're not going to get any
radius.
Pickle Rick.
I have a question. That makes me.
Go ahead, Paul.
If the line between A and C is curved, but you've also got the line between B and C is curved, how do you determine an angle?
You can't. You can't do geometry unless you've got that straight line. That's the point. And their rebuttal to the black swan is to say the line isn't straight.
You can't.
Say again. Say again.
Even if you do have a straight line, you can't have an angle to a point on a circle. It has to be a straight line that you're measuring an angle to a straight line. It can't be a straight line to a point because there is no angle to a point. It has to be two straight lines for an angle.
Yeah, they need a straight line.
That's why I was asking that question. So even technically, since you don't have an angle, you can't measure the angle from B to C. You can't even. It should be a right angle at that point. So even that's wrong, right? So your A would be, or your little a would be wrong with the angle between B and C or whatever. I don't know if you understand what I'm talking about.
Precisely, you won't get accurate. Exactly, you won't get the dip angle correct, and it would be different on a different day. With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you're watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you. I think there was a couple of super chats that I didn't actually shout out. Let's just have a quick look. Let's refresh this page. See, hopefully they appear. If not, I'm sure I did see some super chats fly by and I didn't shout them out, so I'm really sorry if you did super chat and I don't get a chance to. Here we go. Rob Wiggle says, super chat smashed. Thank you very much indeed. And it was actually a new member, so a warm welcome to Michael Jones, who's joined as a lion. So thank you very much indeed. Again, to all of you who did smash the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and a massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ Panels for making today's live show possible. I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
I've only recently found out they've done a sequel called Cobra Kai. It's like a 2-season series.
You can make observations.
Yo, that's a good show, Anthony. I've been into that.
I reviewed that show on my early bird.
Good. I'm waiting for season 3, man. What's going on?
You can reduce the effect refraction has in observations by choosing a higher altitude difference. Then the light trajectory will be very close to a straight line when you observe the horizon. This is very apparent if you observe, for example, mountain lines in the distance where the bottoms.
Your refraction's based on R.
About that?
Your refraction's based on R. Total silence. Your refraction
is okay.
Is based on R, though.
The only rebuttal you have to my arguments? Is that your way of conversing with people? kicking them.
You've said refraction, and I'm pointing out to you that in order to utilise this refraction, you'd first need to have a straight line to the horizon to get R.
No.
No, that's geometry. We just went through it in great detail
that's
for a
wrong.
live audience. Did you not listen? We understand
you're
already,
just going
based on
wrong.
what you've said to us thus far, that you don't understand what geometry actually is. You know, you told us you don't need a straight line, so that makes you moronic. So I'm not expecting you to understand this, even though we've gone through it for a live audience. Yeah? You definitely don't understand geometry. That much is absolutely, without a doubt, made clear to anybody who's listening to any of these conversations with you. You're dumb. You don't need to be partaking in this conversation.
Factors. And the main driver is the temperature gradient for small altitude difference.
Why are you waffling
and
on?
The,
Just waffling through me.
gradient for big
You're just ignoring me.
Temperature.
How disrespectful. Ignoring me completely then.
I'm gonna.
No, he's talking through you.
Yeah, so what gives? When I pummel you, you just think
Why
that
do
by
you keep
talking
kicking
when
me?
I talk
What's the
that that's going to
purpose of
stop the
this?
pummeling. What an outrage. So he just starts talking as soon as I start taking up the reins of pointing out how thick he is to assert that you don't need a straight line. Like this diagram on screen for my audience, right? Donkey dick geometry. Well, he's still got the straight line dotted in Andrew Thomas Young's example of donkey dick geometry. But the only way to get that straight line is to assume it as a fundy, because you can't measure it if all lines to the horizon are bent with refraction. And my point when you started interrupting and saying that I should converse with you differently was that your refraction is based on R, which would mean you need geometry to acquire it.
No. Who keeps kicking me? What the fuck? Who does that? You, Nathan? Why do I keep getting kicked? What's the purpose
You
of
globers
that?
are getting boring. It's either reification or begging the question. Are you going to come up with some evidence?
So for refraction, refraction is not determined by radius.
That's his tactic.
Yeah, it is.
Talk to Nathan and then
You're
accuse
trying
Nathan
to
of kicking
describe
him.
terrestrial refraction.
I don't know
over
who
Lite,
does,
You
but
actually have
somebody
to prove
keeps
the
kicking me.
geometry first.
Please tell us what Nathan said to you, Pickle Rick, to prove you
I
were
can't
listening.
because I kept getting kicked.
Oh,
No,
stop
that's
the
because the
bullshit.
second I
You're
started
not
talking,
listening.
what would happen is you would start talking through me. And then presumably somebody in the panel got pissed off with it and just kicked you out because they couldn't hear what I was saying because you just started talking the moment I started talking, which is typically a baller tactic when I'm pointing out how wrong you are. For example, when I started pointing out that the refraction you were appealing to would require the geometry of an R value we've debunked, based on the fact that you can't draw a straight line, and you're telling us all about how non-straight it is, and how you don't need a straight line when we point out that you don't understand what geometry is to assert that you don't need a straight tangent, making you stupid. Now, I was pointing all those things out to you, but you ignored them by talking through them immediately. That is why people were kicking you out. Now, I understand, Pickle Rick, that while I rape you, you don't want to hear it. So it's easier to stick your fingers in your ears or talk through every word of it, preventing you having to listen to the absolute obliteration that I'm dishing out to you. So while I'm dishing out that
Okay, are you
obliteration,
done,
it's much
Nathan?
better
You
to
made
do
your
what you're
point.
doing
Can
now
you respond,
and
please?
start talking through it than accept how painful it is for a flat earther to point out how dumb you are, that tangents are straight regardless of your dumb stupidity to assert otherwise. You don't have to tolerate it. It's easier to talk through me. Maybe then moan about the mute button. That's the usual baller tactic, because you're cowards.
Nathan, you made
You
your
can't
point.
take
May I
me pointing out how wrong you are. Causing a load of disruption in Discord is your only defence. It's embarrassing. I'm a flat earther and I'm showing how stupid you guys are. It's embarrassing, right?
Okay, Nathan, that's okay. You're right. Whatever. May I respond to the factual parts of your point?
At first acknowledge that the refraction, as I've pointed out and you've ignored, that you're appealing to requires R.
No, that's wrong. I was explaining to you why that is bullshit all the time already, but I kept getting kicked and muted, so you didn't hear that explanations.
So the answer to your question, Nathan, was no. That's wrong. Address that.
Terrestrial refraction, the refraction that is utilised on a sphere, absolutely, without doubt, requires an R value. So just saying I'm wrong, as opposed to my detailed explanation. And for example, any Earth curve calculator that you can reference that has refraction in it will absolutely detail the R value being required for that refraction called terrestrial refraction, also known, as he talks through me, as standard refraction, as he talks through me, because of course he's getting pummeled. He's getting pummeled, so he needs to talk through me.
Wait for Nathan to finish.
Yeah, he can't take it.
Okay,
he's being shown to be wrong by example. Now later, after he's talked through me incessantly, he'll just ignore what I've claimed. Maybe claim that because now I've had to shut down the Discord line so that my pummeling can be heard by my audience, despite the fundies' obfuscation of talking through me incessantly while I point it out. Now, again, I'm just going to highlight the same things. Dumb globehead thinks that this line on screen doesn't need to be straight. Stupid. That's what Pickle Rick is, stupid. He asserted that. It didn't need to be straight. Well, that means he doesn't understand geometry. He is our intellectual inferior. Simple stuff. Now, he's not going to tolerate that. It's much easier to cause a total commotion in the Discord server than it is to listen to me pointing out, as a flat earther, how stupid the globe believer is. Just rumpus that stuff, man. Maybe claim you need a neutral platform. Say, he's been muting me. Yeah, I am. I've shut down your stupidity in the Discord server, Pickle Rick, so my audience can hear a concise and calm obliteration of your stupidity.
Calm. That one was good. Calm, concise, and calm. That was a good joke. Okay.
So we've had a discussion about. Yeah, we've had a discussion. Hold on, Brian. Hold on. We've had a discussion about your use of the R value in the refraction called terrestrial, otherwise known as standard refraction. I've given examples of where it absolutely is applicable and is used by globeheads in your mathematics that asserts geometry. You so far have said no, it isn't.
Okay, so the refractive coefficient is expressed using the radius of.
So I'm right then. So it does use R. So basically, that whole little rigmarole, maybe a few moans, maybe a neutral platform needed, was me being right. My objection being you using the R value we've debunked because you haven't got a straight line. You've justified why it doesn't need to be straight, and yet you need the R value to use this refraction you're now appealing to. Pretty much exactly as Brian detailed earlier when he was like, well, they just appeal to the fallacy again by using 7/6R. I objected, you obfuscated, I pointed out that you didn't understand geometry when you justified not needing a straight tangent, and now you're appealing to that very tangent we've debunked, Pickle Rick.
Share your pain, Nathan.
Okay.
My pain? No, on the contrary. Not pain. Oh man, you couldn't. I just put it on for the audience. I couldn't be any more relaxed while I absolutely annihilate heliocentrism for an audience. You need an R value if you're going to assert terrestrial refraction. You haven't got one when you're justifying not having a straight line tangent to me and having me, the flat earther, point out that that means you don't understand geometry. This isn't pain. This is my pleasure.
Hey,
Nathan, could I just
I was interrupted
to respond to Paul?
Hey, hello. I was interrupted by you in the middle of my sentence. May I finish my sentence?
No, I
please?
wasn't.
No, you can suck on my balls.
Talking at the same time.
You told me that I was in pain. I just corrected you for my audience because I don't want them being left. Sorry, Adam, I will get to you. Leaving them with the impression that you've put out there maliciously that I'm in pain. I went on camera and showed how enjoyable it is to point out to you fundies when you tell me that you don't need a straight line tangent, how that's geometry and therefore you don't understand it. And then also that when you appeal to refraction to get around this problem, that needs an R value that definitely needs a straight line that you've justified not having. Leaving you with the same paradox I've pointed out over and over again. That's not a pain. That's a joy.
Nathan, hey, I was interrupted in the middle of my sentence.
Yeah, and I told you could suck my balls. Yeah? Your sentences have left me explaining how you're appealing to an R value you don't have, it's been debunked. Double your trouble logical fallacy. And all you can do is say that you've been interrupted. Like I care about the courteous nature of this conversation when I'm absolutely annihilating heliocentrism. Your feelings don't concern me.
By the
I'm
way,
not
he
talking
was
about
interrupted
feelings. I'm
by
talking
his
about
own
the fact
side
that you
white
don't let
knight
me finish
before,
the
not
sentence.
by you.
Yeah, we don't care about your sentences. Your sentence is to use an R value we've debunked. So do you think we care? I've pummeled it, and you've said no. Then I've explained that when you say you don't need terrestrial refraction, that it's in your maths of geometry. Now, that's not been addressed, but you've moaned a lot about how I'm cutting you off and stuff. Maybe moan about a neutral platform. Maybe moan about the mute button that I'm using. so I can actually get my point over and over across to an audience. Well, you and your points are, no, I don't need terrestrial refraction. I've debunked that. Now, you've not acknowledged it or done anything in that regard, but you'll moan about you're not getting your chance to speak, right, mate?
Oh, you're finished. So the rest of
stutter for me. Yeah, that's the sound of a man getting raped.
That does not mean that refraction is determined by the radius. You do not need the radius to determine a refraction.
Terrestrial refraction, part of the mathematics that you've ignored in my response. So it's in your geometric mathematics. You've only got to go to any Earth curve calculator. You just ignored it with a lot of ignorance and a lot of Discord rumblings, so you didn't have to listen to it. So it is terrestrial refraction that you globeheads use. You are wrong. Just ignoring my rebuttal. Maybe hum through it.
Asserting.
So now he's humming through it. So you're going to hum through it. So it's la 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 la, fingers in the ears. No, we don't need R. Yeah, you do.
I'm listening very.
Stutter for me. Yeah, you do need R.
Yeah,
you do need R.
Down to this
you do need R. You're just telling us that you don't. You're wrong.
Entertainment along with.
And this isn't entertainment. Fact. You need R for your assertion of refraction.
No.
Yes. In any Earth curve calculator.
That's not how refraction is determined.
That's correct. That's not how refraction's applied in reality, but it is how you globeheads apply it. So you can ignore my rebuttal, you can talk through it and rumpus it, I don't care. The audience still hears me telling them that your refraction's terrestrial refraction, no matter how much you, with a hand wave, no actual concise rebuttal, just no.
Okay, that's not how the refraction is determined. The refraction is determined through the density gradient of air, the optical density gradient.
No, your maths isn't optical, your maths is geometric. We're not talking about optics, we're talking about geometry when we talk about the globe Earth assertion. Your claim is geometric, not optical. So he's literally just sticking his fingers in his ears and humming while I talk?
He's trying to insert light bending down through the density gradient of the air, and while not inserting 7/6R.
If you don't stop humming, Rick, I'm going to remove you from the conversation. He's doing it to close the gate. Coward. Last chance. Keep humming and I'm going to kick you out.
The claim you made is...
I'm going to wait for Brian to repeat what he said that you hummed through. If you do hum through it again, I'll remove you. Try again, Brian.
Okay, Nathan. He's trying to make a claim about light being bent down through the density gradient in the air and not insert 7/6R. But he is going to insert 7/6R later when this light that's supposedly bent down through the density gradient is supposed to follow the curve of his globe Earth that has a supposed radius of 4959 miles. So he's starting with the premise that light is bending down, and then that's going to curve into his globe.
Yes, that's got a name. It's called terrestrial refraction.
When you apply refraction to the globe, then you apply it with the radius of the globe. Yes.
Yeah, that's my point. Yes, that's correct. You'll beg the question of a globe and use this R-based refraction, even though we've already pummeled R. You don't have a straight line for a tangent.
Ooh. I already
Nathan,
obliterated that statement as well. You probably don't remember it.
Are you questioning my memory now?
Minimize and maximize different effects so that some things become negligible, and how you can verify if an effect of something is negligible or not. It's very easy, actually, if you understand.
Sorry, you're muttering about effects that you're going to study when your geometric R-value based refraction is simply mathematical and utilising an R we've debunked because you haven't got a straight line tangent. You demonstrated your idiocy by attempting to justify not requiring a straight line tangent to get around this problem of not having one. So not having a straight line leaves you with no R to acquire.
And this is all without addressing the fact that you're asserting Al-Biruni is the only method to determine the radius of the Earth.
No, it's not my claim, it's yours. your history for your claim is Al-Biruni. You just attempted to deny your own rhetoric to get around the fact that Al-Biruni does require a straight line, but you've defended not having one and justified in geometry not needing one, making you moronic.
Nathan, when did I say that Al-Biruni is the only
Al-Biruni gave you the original 3959 mile radius. That is the origin of your radius value. That's what Nathan is talking about.
Yeah,
Not about other ways to make up this calculation. He's talking about the origin. Comes from Al-Biruni.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Yes.
That's right.
Oh, I'm not so sure about that.
I don't care what you're sure about. Yeah, we know that we are far better educated in your own nonsense than you are. You don't even understand how geometry works.
I know.
Do you need a straight line?
That's like 1,000 years older. More than 1,000 years.
Oh, sorry. Do you want to cite the acquisition of the radius prior to Al-Biruni? Go ahead.
Aristotelians.
Sorry, say that again. We can't hear you, Pickle Rick.
It's not that important. You're not listening anyway.
It is.
I'm out.
It is important because who did you say there? Nathan asked you a question. What was your answer?
He said, it's not important, I'm out. That was his answer.
Right.
Wow, he insisted he had something before Al-Biruni. Then when asked for it, he's out?
Yeah,
I thought he said Eratosthenes underneath his breath.
I can hear him. I like repeat it.
He wouldn't verify it, whether he did or didn't.
They just ran away.
It's getting seriously embarrassing for the global side, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Very.
They have no shame.
Anyone want to add any notes to this? Go on, Adam.
A bit of maths, I know.
Yeah, I've got you up. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just, I was looking at it because you go, oh, it's just trig, but it's actually a couple of points. It is nice, clever trig and derivation, and they do it here for you, which is correct in how it's calculated. But fundamentally, it just underlines the presupposition, because the validity of the calculation, you think, oh, that makes it lovely and valid. The validity comes from the fact we've got a right-angled triangle, so the geometric validity. But as you can see, the assumptions that have to be made before is that we're on a ball. Now, remember, this is trying to measure a ball, but it's assuming it all first. So there's your first assumption, that this dip angle is to it. But then the second is that we are on a ball. It could be anything else as well. So fundamentally, it is an assumption based on an assumption, but it isn't simple trig. You have to derive it, because the way all you've got is this angle here and the height. So you have to take your right angle triangle from AC and O in the center. So you end up with R squared plus AC squared is equal to R plus H squared, and all you've got is H. So you have to use standard trig and then just derive it, because you've got two R's. So this is beautiful and correct and can't be faulted. But like I said, the fundamental premise is you're already assuming you're on a ball, so then and you're just calculating the size of the ball on the presupposition you're already on it.
Exactly.
Outside of the obvious.
Exactly.
Saying here that this line A to C, as we can see, and all the validity that the geometry gives, is a straight line. There's no bends in it.
But the assumption is between C and B, is it not?
So no, you're calculating R in this. So the assumption is R. The assumption is A to C measured by a dip angle is a straight line. The only thing that's measured, as far as I can see, is A to B.
Yeah, no, you missed my point. So between C and B, there's a curve.
Yeah, but you're not measuring that curve in there.
No, I'm not saying you're measuring it. I'm saying you're assuming it.
Yeah, you assume. Yeah, totally. You assume that's the point of the complexity.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm summarising your point. Yeah, that's the point.
Because otherwise, this would be a straight line, we'd met, you know what I mean? And it would be very, very simple trick, but you
Exactly.
have to back calculate, yeah.
The assumption starts with this picture being of a spherical surface. So you start by assuming that it's all taking place on a spherical surface and the dip angle creates a tangent.
Yeah.
Simple. But it's an assumption that you're on a sphere to begin with.
Yeah. You have to assume that, otherwise the trig is useless. The trig and the geometry are based on the premise that you're assuming you're on a ball to begin with. Otherwise, they have no validity.
Exactly. And then when I cartoonify that, just because it happens to be on screen, I'll just stick that up now. Bear with me. Mike, can you see my picture? So you end up with this, which is what we call donkey dick geometry. So you've got the location of the geometric horizon, still requires a straight line, as you can see. He's assuming that they can derive this straight line, because that ain't what you're seeing according to their rebuttal. You're seeing it all bent. Well, Al-Biruni needs it straight. That's what Al-Biruni's doing to get his right angle. Well, if it's all bent, and you can only assume this straight line in the maths, then Al-Biruni didn't measure the geometric R value. That's your paradox. You can't derive the R to give you this bent line based on R because you can't measure it. So they assume this tangent in their mathematics, but Al-Biruni said to have measured it. Therein lies the demolishment and death of the globe Earth religion. Any more for any more?
That guy that was on there a while ago, Pickle Rick, Nathan, for the audience. There's two things he did there. The first one is very obvious. He claimed that he wasn't getting good treatment off you when it came to a decent conversation. Yet that was total projection, as he proved. He was only over talking you. He wouldn't be quiet when you talked. He wasn't able to recite anything you said about anything to do with the R value or anything else. So it was just projecting. That was the first part. It was claiming you were the one messing up the conversation or being a bad conversational opponent, but he was the one doing it. But the second thing he was doing is he was disagreeing with what you would say. Like you would say, no, the 7/6 R is based on R, and he'd say no, right? And he kept on trying to put it back to you on our side to disprove his claim. He was coming up with nothing, and at the end, when it was up to him to come up with something, he disappeared. So that is what you get when you spend your whole life pre-assuming something and starting with the premise that something is a definite without ever actually honestly looking at it.
And with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you first and foremost to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. Of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a day! What a lovely day!